Alright, good morning guys. We are going to be looking over our workbook pages from earlier this week. Alright, we were working on some surface area starting on page 173. I will say that these pages were tougher than our last pages. It took a little bit more work, but that's why we had Friday and Monday to work on them. So I'll be going through these. We're going to start on page 173. Now this was probably, hopefully for most, the easiest of the pages on here. We're finding the surface area of a cube. Let's remember that surface area is the measurement of all of the faces, the area of all the faces added up in a 3D figure, right? A face being, right, the flat surface on the outside. Alright? So what's nice about cubes is all 6 faces are the same, so you only need to find one and then just multiply that by 6 and you've got all of them, right? Or you got the total, right? They've even shown that in their example. You'll see that they have a 3 by 3 by 3 cube, so that means one face is 3 by 3, right? Length times width, that gives us 9. And then we have 9 6 times. So 6 times 9 is 54. Okay, so on our first one, number 1, is a cube that has dimensions that are all 5 inches. So to find one surface, 5 times 5 is 25. And then we have that 6 times. So 25 times 6 gives us 150 inches squared. Alright, so there is our first one, 150 inches squared, right? So we just had 25 6 times. Okay, number 2, same thing, but with 12. So 12 times 12 equals 144. And then there are 6 of those faces. And so times 6, 6 times 4 is 24. 6 times 4 is 24, plus 2 is 26. 6 times 1 is 6, plus 2 is 8. 864 inches squared. 864 inches squared. Okay. Our last one, number 3, has dimensions that are 18 inches. So let's start with 18 times 18. 8 times 8 is 64. 8 times 1 is 8, plus 6 is 14. Drop a 0. 8 times 1 is 8. 1 times 1 is 1. All right, let's add that up. We have 4, 12, 3. So one of the faces is 324 inches squared. And then we have 6 of those, right? Good way to remember a cube is if you have a dice, that's just numbered 1 through 6. So we know there's 6 sides, 6 faces. All right, 6 times 4 is 24. 6 times 2 is 12, plus 2 is 14. 6 times 3 is 18, plus 1 is 19. 1,944 inches squared. Now, I've had students ask this before, and especially since you're at home to check these, obviously do the work first, but if you need to, you can have a parent or an older sibling check over these with you, and by all means, double check with a calculator if need be, right? No need to do the work twice if you're not quite sure. Sometimes I even do that. That's always a handy thing. Now, what I'm not saying is, oh, do all the work with a calculator. By no means, don't do that at all. But do the work and then go back and check it, because if you just sat there and you're like, oh, I'm not sure, these are pretty easy compared to trying to do fractions, with those. So go ahead with that. So I'll show one last time. Here are answers for 1, 2, and 3 on page 173. Okay, feel free to pause that if you need a little bit longer to take it. All right, we are on to page 174, and this is where it starts getting a little bit more complicated. Now, when we've been doing surface area so far, we've been using nets, right? They've flattened it out, and that makes it a little bit more manageable. But when they keep it as a 3D figure, it's a little bit tougher. And so I'm going to kind of explain the example they've given, and we're going to do the 2 problems on this page. But I'm going to link in the description below a video from Khan Academy that explains how to do this as well, just in case you need another explanation of that. Right? So we have rectangular prisms on both of these examples, right? Just like a cube, they have 6 faces, but those faces are different, right? The front and the back are is one set. The top and the bottom is another set, and then the two sides are the final set. So we have three different areas we're finding, and we have two of each of those areas that we need to total up. All right. So it doesn't matter which one you start with. We have three different measurements here, though. We have 6, 12, and 15. So we're going to have three different pairs of measurements that we're going to be multiplying. 6 and 12, 6 and 15, and 12 and 15. All right? And from what it looks like, on number 4, the 6 and 12 is going to be the front and back. So we're going to do 6 times 12, which equals 72. Okay? 6 times 12 gives us 72. Now there's two of each of those, so we need to double that up. That gives us 144 inches squared. So far, in number 4, we've gotten the front and the back. 6 times 12, right? Length times width. And there's two of those, so we got to double our answer. That gives us 144. Now on the left and the right, it's still 6 inches tall, but instead of being 12 inches wide, it is 15 inches wide, right? So we got to do 15 times 6, all right? And so that gives us 90 inches squared. All right, so the left and the right are 6 times 15, and that gives us 90 inches squared. And there's two of those, and so we want to double that. 90 times 2 gives us 180 inches squared. All right, finally, we want the top and the bottom, and that is 12 by 15, right? 12 by 15, our last pair of numbers we haven't multiplied. So 15 times 12, you can do the math out, but just think 6 is half of 12, so we could probably just take our doubled answer from that. But if we worked it out either way, 15 times 12 gives us 180. Remember, there's a top and a bottom. There's two of those, so we need to double 180. That gives us 360. Okay, so far, our first answer is the front and the back, then the left and the right, then the top and the bottom, right? So we found the area of each of those types of rectangles. We got those right here. And then we doubled them because there's two of each of those in a rectangular prism. Now we got to total it up. All right, so 4 plus 0 is 4. 4 plus 8 is 12, plus 6 is 18. 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 3 is 6. 684 inches squared. So on page 174, number 4, we get 684 inches squared. On to number 5, and it's the same method all over again. We just have three different numbers, right? We have 19, 8, and 12. And again, it doesn't matter the order that you do these in. You just need to find the area of each of those pairs and then double it up. So let's start with 12 times 8. 12 times 8 gives us 96. And we need to double that, so 96 times 2. Let's see, 6 times 2 is 12. 9 times 2 is 18, plus 1 is 19. So we have 192 inches squared for our first set. And then we did 12 times 8. Let's do 12 times the next number, 12 times 19. Okay, 12 times 19, I don't know that off the top of my head. But so let's just work that out. So 2 times 9 is 18. 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 is 3, drop a 0. 1 times 9 is 9. 1 times 1 is 1. Add that up, we get 8, 12, and 2. So 19 times 12 is 228. Then we need to double that. So 228 times 2 is 456 inches squared. All right, so 12 times 19 was our next pair, our next length and width. For this one, that is for the front and the back. All right, so that's what we've got so far. Finally, we've done 12 times 8. We've done 12 times 19. That leaves us with the top and the bottom, 8 times 19, right? So as you're always going to have with rectangular prisms is 3 pairs, right? They give you 3 numbers. You're going to have 3 pairs that you're going to multiply. So 19 times 8. 8 times 9 is 72. 8 times 1 is 8, plus 7 is 15. We get 152 for the top, or excuse me, yeah, for the top and the bottom. Then we need to double that, so that gives us 304 inches squared. So for the top and the bottom, we get, and a leftover from our multiplication, there we go. We have 304 inches squared. All right, now almost done. We got to add this up. All right, 2 plus 6 is 8, plus 4 is 12. 1 plus 9 is 10, plus 5 is 15. 1 plus 1 is 2, plus 4 is 6, plus 3 is 9. 952 inches squared. All right, I'm going to just double check my work. You know, always prone to mistakes. We are not perfect, but just double check it. 12 times 8 is 96. Yep, times 2 is 192. Good on our first set. 12 times 19 equals 228. Times 2 is 456. Yep, good. 8 times 19 is 152. Times 2 is 304. Good. Let's double check it by adding it all up. 192. We get 952. That is correct. All right, good job to Mr. Dietzen. He did it himself, the math teacher. Good. All right, so those are our answers. So for number 4 here, let me even circle them. Number 4, we got 684 inches squared. And for number 5, 952 inches squared. Okay. 2 pages to go. So next is a triangular prism. We're on page 175 now. Question number 6. Now, triangular prism is different. It only has 5 faces, 2 triangles, a base, and then left and right sides. And with the dimensions they've given us, the bottom is bigger than, the base here is bigger than either of the 2 sides. So let's do one at a time. Let's start with the triangle. Now, one thing I don't like about how they have this set up is they've given us 4 measurements, right? They've given us the base is 24 by 35, that makes sense. But then the 13 centimeters and the 5 centimeters, it's not quite clear what they're measuring. The way I see it is that the 13 is by sides that have tick marks. So I'm guessing that these sides right here are 13. I think that's what they're trying to tell us. But then if that's the same in the back, or excuse me, the back here, then that is not 5, right? These 13, and then to have 13 in the front and then 5 in the back, it would not look like this. I think that 5 is telling us the height. So to find the area of a triangle, we do base times height divided by 2. All right, so our base here is 24, and our height is 5. So 24 times 5 gives us 120. Divide that by 2, we get 60, and that'd be the area of one of the triangles, but we have 2 of the triangles, so if we doubled that, we'd get back to 120. So what's nice about kind of a shortcut here for a triangular prism is that we can just do base times height and be done, because we're already going to have 2 of them, because it would just be extra work to divide by 2 and then multiply by 2 again. You're just undoing what you already did. So our 2 triangles total up to 120 inches squared. All right, let's find our base now. That's 24 by 35. So let's multiply that. Length times width, it's a rectangular face. 4 times 5 is 20. 4 times 3 is 12. Plus 2 is 14. Drop a 0. 2 times 5 is 10. 2 times 3 is 6. Plus 1 is 7. Add that up, we get 840 inches squared. So our big rectangular base is 840 inches squared. All right, finally we have our 2 sides. And again, I think the way they have this set up is that these sides are 35 across and 13 up and down, right? So if we looked at the picture, this part would be 35 along the bottom, and then these would be 13. All right, so let's multiply that out. 35 times 13, 3 times 5 is 15. 3 times 3 is 9, plus 1 is 10. Drop a 0. 1 times 5 is 5. 1 times 3 is 3. We get 455 inches squared for one of those rectangular faces. But we have two of those, so we need to double our answer. So 455 times 2 gives us 910 inches squared. So let's add that up. Gotta find the total. 0, 6, 7, 9 plus 9, 1,870 inches squared. Now let's verify. Need to make sure I did this right just in case, right? Always good to double check your work. Okay, so again, base times height gives us 120, right? That gives us our two triangles all together, right? Didn't need to divide because you'd just be doubling it. 24 times 35, 840, yep. 35 times 13 times 2, 910, yep. Add it all up, plus 120, 1,870 inches squared. So, for number 6 on page 175, again, we found the area of the two triangles, of the big rectangular base, and then of the two other rectangular faces. Again, that 910 is 35 times 13, and then we doubled it, right, times 2 to get 910 since there are two of them. All right. Number 7, we are back to nets. Yes, back to our comfort zone. So, in this one, we have, again, 3 different types of rectangular faces. And so, let's take a look at those. Okay, so looking at this, we have, camera's being a little slow now. We have 2 small ones that are 8 by 10, 2 big ones that are 15 by 10, and 2 medium-sized ones that are 15 by 8, right? And so some of those are easy to see. 8 by 10 we can see, length times width is right there. 15 by 8, length times width is right there. It's these big ones right here that are kind of tough to get to because they don't have the numbers right by them. But as we can see, the 10 lines up with the bottom and the 15 lines up with the side. Okay, so let's go ahead and solve for number 7. Let's start with 15 times 8. That's the medium-sized one. Again, doesn't matter which one you do, just as long as you do all of them. 15 times 8, that would give us, let's see, we got 30, 60, 90, 120 inches squared. Then we need to double that, so that gives us 240 inches squared. So again, 15 times 8 is 120, and then we have 2 of those, so just double that, and you get 240. Okay, next, 10 times 8. So our small ones. That's mental math right there. 10 times 8 is 80. Double that, we get 160 inches squared. Last one, 15 times 10. That's also mental math, right? Just throw a 0 on the end. That's 150. Double that, we get 300. Okay, let's add them up. We get 0. 4 plus 6 is 10. 1 plus 2 is 3. Plus 1 is 4. Plus 3 is 7. So for number 7, we get 700 inches squared. Right there. Right? We multiplied and then doubled our answers because we had 2 of each. And there we go. All right. On to the last page. Okay, we have some kind of word problems. It's still rectangular prisms. Slightly bigger numbers. But let's go ahead and try this. This glass fish tank does not have a cover. Right? So there's not a rectangular face on the top. So it's like we have this, and we just remove this top portion, right? So we only have 5 faces to find. Find the total area of the glass panels used to make the tank. Right? We have 3 dimensions, 24, 21, and 27, right? So 24 length, 21 width, 27 height. So we know that on the bottom we have 24 and 21. And if that's the bottom, the top is going to be isn't going to be there. So we only need to find that once. So for our first one, we're just going to do 24 times 21. 1 times 4 is 4. 1 times 2 is 2. 2 times 4 is 8. 2 times 2 is 4. Oh, Mr. Deeds already made a mistake. Forgot to drop a 0. That happens. That'll mess up your whole problem if you're not careful. There we go. That's better. 4, 10, 5. So for our base, we have 504 centimeters squared, and we don't need to double that because there's not a top. Okay? We said there was no lid on this. Okay? And again, this is number 8. Let's find our next one. For all the rest, we'll need to double it because it's just normal. So we already did 24 times 21. Let's try 24 times 27. 7 times 4 is 28. 7 times 2 is 14, plus 2 is 16. Drop a 0, don't forget that. 2 times 4 is 8. 2 times 2 is 4. Get 8, 14, 6. 648. Now in this case again, we are going to have to double. Unlike, right, there was our one exception in that last part. 2 times 8 is 16. 2 times 4 is 8, plus 1 is 9. 2 times 6 is 12. So we get 1,296 centimeters squared. All right, last pair. We've done 24 times 21, 24 times 27. The only ones we haven't paired up are 27 times 21. So let's try it. Excuse me. 1 times 7 is 7. 1 times 2 is 2. Drop a 0. 2 times 7 is 14. 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5. So we get 567. And then we got to double that, right? There's 2 of each of those. 2 times 7 is 14. 2 times 6 is 12, plus 1 is 13. 2 times 5 is 10, plus 1 is 11. 1,134 centimeters squared. And we need to add this all up. It's a long one. 4 plus 6 plus 4 is 14. 1 plus 9 plus 3 is 13. 1 plus 5 is 6. Plus 2 is 8. Plus 1 is 9. 1 plus 1 is 2. So let me move that out for my work. We get a total of 2,934 centimeters squared for number 8. Now let me verify. Let me just double check my work. Okay, 24 times 21 does give us 504. That was the one we didn't need to double. Remember, no lid. 24 times 27 and double that. Yep, 1,296. 27 times 21. Yep, double that. Yep, 1,134. Add it up. 2,934 centimeters squared. All right, so there's our answer for page 176, number 8. And for these last two, I'm just going to do each on a separate board because it requires that much more work, right? That much more space. On to number 9, almost done. It's 10 problems, but they were lengthy problems. That's why I gave us Friday and Monday to do these. All right, I was originally just going to have it do Friday and we're going to do something else on Monday, but I was like, nope, this is going to take longer than I anticipated. All right, same thing. It says the tank shown is made of steel. It does not have a cover. Find the area of the steel sheet used to make the tank. So it's the same exact problem, just different numbers, slightly different scenario in that it's not a fish tank, it's a steel tank. Same thing. There's not a lid, so one of the the base we don't double. The one difference is we have one number that is that has a fraction. We have a mixed number there, and I think it'd be easier to just turn that into a decimal. So 6.5 is the same as 6.5. You could have kept it as a mixed number. That's up to you, but I feel like it's easier to work with decimals. So let's start with the base. The base says it's 28 by 6.5, and remember there's not a top, so we only need to do that once. So let's try that. 28 times 6.5, right? And that's how you'd set that up if you don't remember. It's just the same as doing 28 times 65. And we just have, you need to bring that dot down into the same spot, the decimal point into the same place value. 5 times 8 is 40. 5 times 2 is 10, plus 4 is 14. Drop a 0. 6 times 8 is 48. 6 times 2 is 12, plus 4 is 16. Let's add that up. We get 0, we got 12, we got 8, and we got 1. So 1820, bring our decimal point down, we have 182 for the base, or 182.0. Alright, next, we have the front and the back, which are 6.5 by 13. So we're going to do 13 times 6.5. 5 times 3 is, 15. 5 times 1 is 5. Plus 1 is 6. Yep, drop a 0. I was doubting myself there for a second. 6 times 3 is 18. 6 times 1 is 6, plus 1 is 7. We get, add that all up, we get 84.5. Then we got to double that one. So times 2, right? There's a front and a back. 2 times 5 is 10. 2 times 4 is 8, plus 1 is 9. 2 times 8 is 16. So for the front and the back, altogether, we get 169, right? 13 times 6.5, and then doubled, because there's 2 of them. Okay, last set is we have the sides, which are the biggest part. Right? 28 by 13. Right? Our last pair we haven't used. We've used 28 and 6.5, 13 and 6.5, so our last pair is 28 and 13. 3 times 8 is 24. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 2 is 8. Drop a 0. 1 times 8 is 8. 1 times 2 is 2. All right, let's add that up. We have 4, 16, and 3. Then we need to double that, right? There's 2 of each of those. I know I've been saying that a lot, but I really want to hammer that home, right? 2 times 8 is, 2 times 4 is 8. 2 times 6 is 12. 2 times 3 is 6, plus 1 is 7. We get 728. And let's total that up. We got 2 plus 9 is 11, plus 8 is 19. 1 plus 8 is 9, plus 6 is 15, plus 2 is 17. 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 7 is 10. I got 1,079 feet squared. Let's double check that. 28 times 6.5, 182. Good so far. 13 times 6.5 times 2 gives us 169. And 28 times 13 times 2 is 728. Add it all up. And indeed, it is 1,079 feet squared. And that is, again, page 176, number 9. Here we go. There's my work. 1,079 feet squared. Okay. Last one, number 10, and then we are done. Okay, let's see what we got going on here. A rectangular piece of poster board measures 60 centimeters by 80 centimeters, right? We got a big old piece of poster board. Lynn draws the net of a box on the poster board and cuts it out. If the box measures 10 centimeters by 16 centimeters by 27 centimeters, what is the area of the poster board left, right? So again, Lynn has this poster, draws the net inside it, and cuts it out. How much of the poster board is left? So let's find the poster board first, right? It's just a rectangle. It says it's 80 centimeters by 60 centimeters. Oh, that's some mental math. 6 times 8, 48. There are 2 zeros left over, so let's bring those down. It's multiplication. The area of the rectangular poster board is 4,800 centimeters squared. So I found that. We're going to set that to the side, come back to it later. We got to find the surface area of this net that Lynn put together. So again, 3 numbers, so we're going to have 3 pairs, 10, 16, and 27. So let's start with 16 times 10. That's mental math there. Just throw a 0 in at the end. We get 160. There's 2 of each of those. Double that. Gives us 320. All right, next, let's do 10s again. Those are easy. 27 times 10 gives us 270. There's 2 of each of those. Let's double that. That gives us 540 feet squared. We've used 16 and 10, 27 and 10. That leaves us with 27 and 16. 6 times 7 is 42. 6 times 2 is 12, plus 4 is 16. Drop a 0. 1 times 7 is 7. 1 times 2 is 2. So it's 2, 13, and 4. As always, we need to double that, unless it says otherwise, like in those previous 2 problems. 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times 3 is 6. 2 times 4 is 8. All right, let's add those all up. 864, 540, and 320. That gives us 4, 12, 14, 17. 1,724. Now we're not done. We need to subtract now to get our difference, to see what's left. That's what the question's asking. So we need to borrow, double borrow in fact, 6, 7, 0, 3. All right. Now let's verify that I got 3,076. Let's verify. So 16 times 10 is in fact 160. Times 2 is 320. Good so far. 27 times 10 is 270. Times 2 is 540. Good so far. 27 times 16 is 432. Times 2 is 864. Add it all up. And almost done. 3,076 feet squared. It did work. Alrighty. So for page 176, number 10, we get 3,076 feet squared. All right, so that does it for today. We will not be back in the workbooks again until partway through next week, so you get a little bit of break from that. Again, I'll link the video in the description below from Khan Academy that gives just kind of a basic description of what we went over. Now, for any assignments that we have outside of the workbook, all of our surface area will be done within a net. All right, I feel like this requires a little bit more work or a little bit more attention compared to seeing it spread out and flattened out. I think that's more visually easy to understand. So no need to worry. I understand this was a difficult one, or at least a time-consuming one. That's the problem with surface area. We can multiply numbers. We know how to do that. We know how to add up numbers. That's not hard. It's just a matter of doing all the work. So it's more time-consuming than the concept itself is difficult, at least in my opinion. So, alrighty, we will see you guys later.